I'm 67, and this is the first time I've ever had a DEXA scan, a bone scan, and
Yes.
I had to ask for it. And most women are not offered it until they're age 65, which is ridiculous because
Yes.
most of our bone loss, as you know, happens in the first 7 years of going into menopause. And so women are losing a tremendous amount, can be up to 20% of their bone in the early part of menopause, but yet then they are not scanned for it until the later part. And that's the other thing I want to encourage women to do is, first of all, ask your doctors.
Welcome to Hormone Heroes, where I share testimonials from real people who have experienced bioidentical hormone therapy. Men and women share the symptoms they have experienced and the difference proper hormone replacement has made. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Hopkins, and I have been in the functional medicine space for over 30 years, with a focus on hormones for 20 years. Please keep in mind this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult with your physician or practitioner for medical advice. Let's get started with today's guest. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Cindy Dupuie. She is a functional medicine, a dietitian, practitioner. She got her degree in dietetics and food administration from Cal State in Long Beach. Welcome to the podcast, Cindy.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. That was a really sweet and nice introduction.
We're just a couple of girls having fun, aren't we? Well,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your journey. You had mentioned that you started this 18 years ago into the functional medicine realm.
Yes. What got me started, yes, I did get my degree in dietetics and food administration a long time ago. And then about early 40s, I was going through a divorce and I was really struggling and had a lot of digestive issues and stumbled across Dr. Mark Hyman and then stumbled across the Institute of Functional Medicine. They were having their 6-day training here in Pasadena. And I went, I got to go. And during that training, I realized that I had found my tribe and got me back into the body and helped me heal myself. I was able to heal my digestive system. And that's what got me all going. And I studied and worked and learned as much as I possibly could and then opened up a practice. And, I call myself a generalogist. We have all these ologists in
Yes.
Western medicine, and there might be a need for that. I'm not saying there isn't. But, people end up coming to people like me and you when they're not getting help by the Western medicine paradigm. So that's what got me into functional medicine. And at the same time, I went into an early menopause. I was at 43.
Stress can do that.
Stress can do that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also had lost quite a bit of weight. So my body says, we're not making hormones. Sorry.
Yes.
And so the combination of the two, exactly. And so my perimenopause was from 1 week. And then the next month I wasn't, my periods were
Wow.
gone. And I went like that. It's like, okay, here we are. So that was kind of my perimenopause to menopause journey and journey into finding functional medicine.
So divorce is hard no matter what
Mhm.
the cause, and it does wreak havoc on our adrenal system and
Yes.
hormones, just like you mentioned. You also talked about how you ended up being diagnosed with osteopenia, which is the beginning of bone loss.
Yes. And it's interesting because it happened this year. And so I'm going to tell you my age because I think it correlates with this, kind of what I'm going to say here. So I'm 67, and this is the first time I've ever had a DEXA scan, a bone scan,
Yes.
and I had to ask for it. And most women are not offered it until they're age 65, which is ridiculous because
Yes.
most of our bone loss, as you know, happens in the first 7 years of going into menopause. And so women are losing a tremendous amount, can be up to 20% of their bone in the early part of menopause, but yet then they are not scanned for it until to the later part. So I went in and this was the telehealth call and I did see my scans and it was barely tiny into osteopenia. And the doctor got on the phone with me and she's very old school. And I was already a little bit upset with her. But anyway, some other things that she did. But her take on this was that I was to go on a biphosphonate. She didn't ask about or look at my family history. She didn't talk about diet. She didn't talk about what my exercise regime is. She didn't talk about lifting weight. She just said calcium Really?
Mm.
And biphosphonates. And I already have. I mean, my digestive system is where my weak spot is. And so that was not going to do me any good there. And so I should
Right.
think about that. And, some women might be a little bit panicked that they have osteopenia, which again, there's a scale. Okay. There's a
Sure.
range of osteopenia, and I'm at the very low end of the range. But I wasn't because it's like, okay, we don't know when this bone loss happened. Did it happen 10 years ago and I've been maintaining? We have no idea, right?
Right.
Could I start lifting more weights? Sure, I can. Do I watch my protein? I'm pretty good about that. So there's a lot of different things you can do. So no, I wasn't worried about it because we have no context. We have
Right.
no idea when this happened and if it has continued to happen. And that's the other thing I want to encourage women to do is first of all, ask your doctors. And many of them will do it if you have risk factors. And there's many, many different things. And I have a blog post that talks about different risk factors. So you can use that as I really would like it to have it done. And this is why. If they're not willing to do it, a bone scan you can get yourself. And it's like what, 50 to 75 bucks, I think? Yeah.
Depending on the facility, but yes, very
Yeah.
affordable.
Very affordable and very much worth it because we don't want to mess around with that. And the other thing is, once women are diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, they may not test you again for another 2 years. It's like, really? So I would say either ask your physician or pay out of pocket because it's not that much. And it's well worth to know if what you are doing is helping or hurting where you're at. So you get to take control over that.
Right. And if you went into menopause around the age of 43, then you had been in menopause 20-ish years. And that's a long time to be without estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So let's go back to your initial illness and
Mhm.
talk to us about how you personally healed your gut. What sort of testing did you do? How did you start digging up what you're so passionate about now?
And anyone who has digestive issues knows why I'm passionate because this
Yes.
can be so uncomfortable and so debilitating sometimes. So I did happen to see a naturopath, and this was interesting. And she did order the GI Defects from Genova Labs.
Okay.
Okay, so we got that.
Or
Excuse me.
stool.
Yes, it is a
Okay.
stool test. GI Maps and Genova Labs both do a functional stool test where they're looking at the functionality. They test all different things, enzymes, fat, bile salts, short chain fatty acids. It's a very good, complete snapshot of what's going on in the digestive system for the most part. And it's interesting because this was 20 years ago, right? Probably more than 20 years ago. And I don't think she was looking for maybe her own specific things, but she missed a heck of a lot of what the test showed. So it was interesting when I was at the training with the IFM, Institute of Functional Medicine, you sit next to the same person, you come back every day, start a conversation. And the gal I was sitting next to, she was a naturopath from Canada. And she goes, do you have your tests? And I said, yes. So I brought him in the next day and she goes, you're not making any stomach acid. You're not absorbing any of your fat. And of course, stress, okay,
Sure.
well, it definitely affects stomach acid and depends on the person. So I started to down stomach acid HCl.
And you take that right before meals, correct? By that,
Yes.
yeah.
And that actually it mimics your stomach acid and it's very important for digestion on a lot of different levels. I could take 10 of them at that point in time with one meal.
Wow.
That is how little I was making. Yes. But thank God I sat next to somebody who could say, do this and titrate up to see what your tolerance is, right? And I didn't have H. pylori because H. pylori can be a factor here. That was tested for. And what I started to do to take zinc harnessing to heal the stomach lining, started to do things to calm my poor adrenals down and to calm me down. That was a big part of it. And then I think I also had SIBO, and SIBO wasn't a big deal. It wasn't really talked about. I hadn't heard of it. I think I probably did at that point in time. So I did a variety of things. I supported my body with the digestive enzymes, with the HCl, did some candida protocols and some other protocols as well. Do you know who Dan Kalish is? Okay, well, me too. So I happened to do a course, and again, this was like 20 years ago at least, and I realized I had a parasite. So, but it just kind of all came together like a little patchwork.
So just in case listeners don't know what is SIBO, can you describe what that is?
SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and most of our bacteria is supposed to be in our large intestine. It's not
Yes.
supposed to wander up to our small intestine, but when it does, it's very uncomfortable because when we eat certain foods, especially a lot of healthy foods for us, the bacteria will eat it and emit either hydrogen or methane gas. And so, guess what? We get all bloated and uncomfortable, and it's not fun.
So would you say bloating could possibly be an indication someone might have SIBO?
Definitely, it could be an indication that somebody has SIBO, especially a pattern of bloating where it gets worse throughout the day. I will say low stomach acid can also be a sign of bloating. And I do ask my clients, do you experience bloating right after you eat? And if that's the case, usually it's stomach acid in addition to, or just an issue with stomach acid.
Okay, very interesting. So you worked with your body by healing your adrenals, doing some supplements, decreasing stress. You said digestive enzymes, HCl, which is hydrochloric acid, stomach acid. And what was the other couple of things you did for yourself?
I did do a Candida protocol.
Candida protocol. And
Because
candida is yeast.
Mhm.
Yes.
I did show that I did have some overgrowth of yeast. And, prior to all this, I had always kind of an issue with constipation. So, the digestive system in my family is our weak area. My mom had colon cancer. And I would say that she didn't pass from the colon cancer, but it was from the treatment that she received for the cancer. And
Oh,
and I
yeah.
believe that she also had, strictures as a result of it and overgrowth. It was just a mess. She basically starved to death. That's basically what ended up happening. I know. I know. What a way to go, right?
Yeah.
So that is a weak spot. And either now or a little bit later, I would like to kind of bring this into menopause a little bit. What
For
can
it.
what can happen into menopause? So anyone who's ever had SIBO or treated anyone with SIBO knows that SIBO can kind of go back and forth a little bit. It can come back a little bit or it can come back with a vengeance. And part of that is we are not taking care of the underlying issue here. Sometimes SIBO can happen because we have ongoing constipation and so things back up. We can have it because it can be triggered by intestinal bug. Problem with peristalsis, a problem with bile, because one of the properties or one of the functions of bile is to sterilize our food. Same thing with stomach acid, right? Stomach
Right.
acid sterilizes our food. So if you're not making enough there's a chance you're going to have more issues on down the line. As we get into menopause, what can happen with some women depends on your genetic makeup. We can have a harder issue making bile. There is a process of combining. So bile is made of bile salts, taurine, choline, and sometimes when we lose that estrogen, that ability to combine and have that enzymatic action happen to create the bile diminishes.
And the bile is created in the liver.
Yes, bile is
Yes.
created in the liver and then it goes to the gallbladder. And then when we eat a fatty food or a food with fat in it, then it'll go in, or just digestion in general, it'll
Uh-huh.
go into the upper part of the small intestine. And interestingly enough, most gallbladders are removed in menopause and maybe right after pregnancy as well. And especially if a woman, has had more than two children. And part of that is baby needs a lot of choline. So the body will shunt the choline that maybe mom needs in for baby. If mom's not getting enough, she may end up with a problem with the gallbladder issue. What I found for me, and I had since done some genetic testing, and so I went, oh, look at this. This is where history can also come in. Okay, your family history is really important, and that is, I think we have always had problems with bile. No, I've never had anything overt other than I have constipation issues, which can be a part of it. But my mom had gallbladder issues. There's other people in my family that have dandruff, dry skin, or will have to go to the bathroom, right after they eat something fatty. So obviously there's some familial issues with bile. It took about 10 to 12 years. And was I on HRT then? If I was, it was a very low dose because that's what
Okay.
was given out at that point in time. Yeah. So I think I was on a very low dose and I was having such issues with my heels cracking and bleeding and my skin around my fingers kind of cracking and bleeding. And I kind of went, okay, is it thyroid? Because that could be, right? And they,
Sure.
right, dry skin tested that. Thyroid looked great. And I thought, okay, is it a gut issue? Is it affecting my skin and the skin barrier? I don't know. I think maybe it was Dr. Ben Lynch. Do you know him?
I do not.
Okay, so he's really big on the genetics part, and he has a supplement line called Seeking Health. But anyway, he's pretty brilliant. He can go off sometimes, but he's pretty brilliant. Look him up. He's been pretty quiet lately, actually. And at least he hasn't been on my radar. Anyway, I think I came across something there and I started to take a supplement that would support making my bile. My God, my cracked heels went away.
Interesting.
The little bit of constipation that I had left, all of a sudden that smoothed things out. And I do have a genetic SNP, and it's homozygous, which means I have it from both families, so both sides of the family, that does affect my conjugation of the choline to make bile.
And you discovered that just through your own research.
Through my own research, which I'm learning and reading and listening constantly.
So obviously the supplement contained choline. What was the name of it, just in case anyone?
Well, there's two different supplements that I might recommend. One is actually by Dr. Ben Lynch, and
Okay.
it's called Bile Nutrient.
Okay.
And it's a nice blend. And then there's another one by Zymogen, which is Xymogen, and it's called Lipotropics or something close to that.
Okay.
I usually do the bile nutrients more than the lipotropics. Lipotropics does not have magnesium in it, and sometimes I'll have a magnesium sensitive client.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a choice.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So back to your lack of estrogen.
Yes.
Decreasing the efficiency of the bile production.
Yes.
So you were on a very low dose, which probably wasn't enough to help.
It wasn't enough to help my body do what it needs to do. And even though I'm on a much higher dose of estrogen now, and by the way, I was on a biased, of
Okay.
course, it was
Yes.
80/20. So
Ye-
even though I'm on a higher, I haven't played with it so much of pulling back the bile nutrients. I still haven't.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
It's kind of working.
So when you're approaching a female patient that's perimenopausal or menopausal, addressing the bile production is huge. Do you want to follow up with any other approaches you have for a menopausal female?
I think approach would be because the loss of our hormones affects every single tissue and organ in our body. And our genetics are going to kind of determine where that's going to show up for a woman, right?
Mhm.
So taking a really good symptom assessment and family history, their history assessment guides me then to where I need to focus for that particular woman and how to support her. And I think one of the biggest things that I like to do for the woman that comes to me, whether she's on HRT or not, especially for the woman who is not, I like to point her in the direction of getting as much knowledge that she can make a decision on her own of whether or not she wants to pursue having HRT, being on HRT or not. It's her
Sure.
decision. So educating a woman and supporting her.
So do you have all your patients do genetic testing, or do you encourage it?
I don't. If someone is curious, I may recommend them to somebody else who does that because it's the
Okay.
interpretation. It's not something that I feel comfortable with. I
Sure.
think it can be a nice tool, but to kind of go, oh, yeah, this is why.
Uh-huh.
It's nice to have, but I think, I do think if you're going to spend the money on that, I mean, it's nice to have it, okay? But if I
Sure.
was to spend my money or recommend someone spending money, I would rather see an organics acid test, an oats test, actually see what the body is doing with the resources that it has, because genetics will determine how our body utilizes different vitamins, minerals, and all of that. Okay. How well it is detoxifying both our hormones and our environmental toxins, and or a Dutch test. I think we get more bang for our buck. Again, seeing a Dutch test is a dried urine test, and it is a little bit pricey, but it tells us where how we metabolize our hormones, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, looks at melatonin, looks at our cortisol throughout the day, and looks at some of the organic acids as well. So I think I'd rather see that. And you know what? Just starting with good blood work.
Sure. Give us your list of typical lab tests you'll order
Okay.
in normal air quote blood work.
No, okay, so if someone's gonna come to me and I'm gonna give them a panel, right? With my perimenopause, okay, for everybody, let's not say they're in menopause or perimenopause, not necessarily women or not. Okay, so we have the CMP, CBC, which is the standard panels, a standard lipid panel too. If you want to go deeper, you can. And then, of course, the inflammatory markers, all right? So we've got CRP, we've got homocysteine, We've got cedrate, ferritin, insulin. Okay.
Fasting insulin.
Fasting insulin. Yes. Fasting
Yes.
insulin. Yes. So those are my inflammatory markers. I always like to see a thorough thyroid panel.
Sure.
Doctors don't do. They'll do.
And what tests
Mhm.
do you include?
Okay. So TSH, which is what every doctor does, is your thyroid stimulating hormone, but it's not really a hormone. I mean,
Right.
it's not your thyroid hormone. And then always free T4, free T3. If we're lucky,
Mm.
reverse T3. And I always want to see the antibodies, thyroid antibodies
Sure.
too, at least once if it hasn't been done and if there's been a huge change, then I always like to see it. And, some people will say, well, I already know I have Hashimoto's.
Sure.
And so my doctor won't retest my antibodies. It's like, that's because your doctor doesn't know that you can lower your antibodies by supporting your system. And that's what we want to do.
Oh,
So,
so much of Hashimoto's is controlled by food in the gut.
yes,
Yes.
so much of it is.
Yes.
It's amazing. And what else? I do like to see an iron panel.
Uh-huh.
Or what? So that would include total iron
Binding
capacity, binding. Thank
capacity.
you. So
Uh-huh.
what's my B for? And percent saturation. And then, of course, ferritin, which iron stores an inflammatory marker.
Yes.
What else do I like to see?
You do hormones,
Uh,
female hormones.
I don't necessarily do it on my perimenopause because it can be all over the place. It depends on where they are in their menopause travel. And I kind of base that on symptoms. I don't test at least progesterone, estrogen in my menopausal woman who's not on HRT because it'll show up normal because it's
Right.
normal for
For
menopause.
yes, we explain that over and over every day.
Yeah.
Normal is not optimal.
No, it's not optimal. It's not optimal. Do you do anything else I didn't
We
hit?
do we do everything you just mentioned. We will do some micronutrient testing here
You do.
through SpectraCell, but just
Okay.
we can get a few values, B12 and folate, vitamin D.
Vitamin D. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that
Yes.
one's always huge. But yeah, everything you mentioned and plus a few micronutrients if we're not doing the big SpectraCell test.
Do you do RBC magnesium and then zinc?
Yes, not
Okay.
all the time, not
Okay.
just kind
Yeah.
of generally, but if we feel like someone needs those, we will do those.
Okay. Yeah. So we pretty much are on the same page.
Yeah, yeah. I love fasting insulin. It's so nice to, especially we do medical weight loss here in the clinic,
Okay.
and it's so nice to be able to tell people their insulin resistance and watch it decrease over
Yes.
time.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, so that's for your females. And then what's your next approach?
With my females,
Do you have these lab results?
when I have these lab results, then I pair them with what's going on symptomatically. And then we come up with a protocol, and often it is dietary. Okay. But a lot of people that come to me actually have been digging for a while. And
Uh-huh.
so they'll come to me a lot of the times eating fairly well, but I'll have to tweak it. Usually I will have to tweak the carbs, the protein, and the vegetables. I mean, everyone's so focused on carbs and protein. It's like, okay, but we got to get the veggies in too, you guys. We got to get those green things in. It's really important. We got to get color in.
Right.
And then timing of eating and, at least a 12-hour fast at night. All these things, getting a woman to sleep, super important. If we can get her to sleep, we can calm a lot of other things down. So just basically coming up with an initial protocol usually includes some supplementation, some dietary changes, and some lifestyle changes, depending on what her needs are. And if there's digestion involved in that, then I always do ask them to go back to their doctors, asking specifically for this, this, and this, and we see how far we can go. And then I'm always looking for doctors who I can work with because a lot of the women that do come to me are 65 and older.
Mhm.
And so unfortunately, they've missed that 10-year window that if a doctor is going to prescribe, they often are not comfortable after that 10-year window after a woman has gone into menopause. So we have all these women who are 65 and older who perhaps have never been offered any type of hormone replacement, and then they're told that they're too old and that it'll cause blood clots, which it doesn't.
Right.
And, we've got 2 decades of women who are just have been forgotten.
Yes, our oldest female hormone patient is 83 and lots and lots in their 70s. And so if we're starting a female on hormone replacement therapy, we will and she's been in menopause a while,
Mhm.
10 years or more.
Mhm.
We will start low and slow
Mhm.
and give the body a chance to accommodate all that new nitric oxide and the flexibility of the vascular system again. And
Hearing that.
yeah,
I
but then we
do.
and then we just ramp up from there. So you mentioned you're on HRT. What are you personally doing?
What am I personally doing? So right now, I am personally doing a transdermal cream, a compounded cream for estrogen. And I'm kind of like my higher doses. I'll tell you, I'm playing with things, right? We can
Yes.
be dangerous on ourselves. I'm probably at about 4 milligrams a day of my compounded cream. And
And
then
is it biased? Is it a combo?
no, no,
It's
it's just estradiol. And then I do a compounded progesterone. And I probably do about 70, between 60 and 80 milligrams a night. I do take a week off a month. I
okay.
do. And a lot of women will have a breakthrough bleed with that. I don't seem to know how to do that. Even when my estrogen's gone way, way, way high, it's like I still don't. It's like, wow. But from the time there was a period I was experimenting, the Wiley protocol,
I
right?
did.
So I believe this is like, it wasn't called that, but it sounds like it's very similar, where I wanted to experiment with that physiological dosing and the dosing where you change it almost every day, the amount
Right.
of estrogen, amount of progesterone you're doing to mimic a cycle of a fertile woman, right? And I must be a hyper absorber because I'm going, I don't feel right. And, estrogen can squash appetite.
Yes.
I couldn't get enough to eat. And I've never really had a big problem, with an appetite. I mean, I can eat,
Sure.
but this is like, I gotta eat. It's oh my God. And we tested my estrogen, or we did progesterone and estrogen, and I think I was like at 1500. Yeah, it was
Wow.
way, 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 way up there. So, of course,
Wow.
we cut it back, but and I didn't like it. So I'm just on a static dose.
Yes.
That's what I might zip it up a little bit. Now, I know you do testosterone, and I hadn't been educated in that, and I'm ashamed to say that. But, we get on board when we get on board, right?
That's right. We do better when we know better.
We do, but I like that. I like that a lot. So it's just been kind of, I've been on the journey of hormones and really finding out about it so I can help my clients a lot more. So
Sure.
I can come at it different ways. And testosterone, I do have testosterone cream. Didn't really know a whole lot. Was a little bit shy about it. And I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need testosterone. And I've started to take it now. My hair, it could be something else, seems to fall out a little bit when I start taking even a minuscule amount of testosterone. But I'm
Te
hoping, yeah, go ahead.
Testosterone increases the hair loss, hair growth cycle in females especially, and what it will do is the 3 phases are catagen, antigen, and telogen, I believe. And all that means is our hair has a cycle to it, and so initially when someone starts testosterone, you might notice a little more hair in your hairbrush or in the drain of the
Mm-hmm.
shower.
Hmm.
But we always point out that at the hair growth line, you will see
Yes.
more hair, or your hairstylist may see little sprigs of hair sticking up.
Yes.
But we do test if a female is losing more hair than is normal. We do test for DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone,
Hmm.
and then we'll address that if they are converting too much testosterone to dihydrotest, which is what makes men and women lose hair, scalp hair. And then, we can come in with finasteride or something like that to combat that. But
Do you use saw palmetto at all? Does that work
we
at
do.
all? Okay.
Yeah, we use
Okay.
diindolylmethane. You
Hmm.
probably use that. A lot of our supplements will have saw palmetto in them,
Okay.
especially with in their
Hmm.
prostates and
Hmm.
things like that. So, yeah, that's a
Okay.
great supplement. But
Okay.
anyway, I didn't mean to.
No, well, I was curious, and I think it's nice for everyone to hear it too.
Yeah. Well, young females make 10 times more testosterone than estrogen. And so
Oh,
in our
wow.
dosing, we actually give women testosterone to estrogen in a 10-to-1 ratio or
Okay.
close to
Wow.
it.
Okay.
So, and men make 100 times more. So we're not
Mhm.
turning anyone into, we're not changing a female into a male. Now, there are some people that want that to happen, of course,
Yes. Yes.
but women in general, we just give them a nice youthful female dose.
Okay. I like that. And like I said, playing with it. And the last time I tested my estrogen in blood, it was still higher than probably it should be. And it was close to 300. So I'm trying to kind of like, well, let's give me a little bit of testosterone. Let's see what that does.
Uh-huh.
So I can bring that estrogen down. And, the other thing that caught me with the testosterone was bone health and
Mhm.
the fact that it will promote the building of bones, the osteoblasts.
Yes, 8
So
8% a year, it builds backbone.
and yes, and so going back to the osteoporosis, estrogen is FDA approved for preventing osteoporosis. And I don't know any of my clients who have fairly, late stages of osteopenia or osteoporosis. They have never been offered estrogen by their physicians
Yeah,
as a
it's
preventative.
right. Well, the biphosphates have a better return on investment
Bottom line.
than a natural human substance.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's
Yeah.
what's
At the
going
end of the
on.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Miss Cindy, tell us more about what your website. I know you have a blog, you have 2 books that you've written. Give us a little download on what all you've produced in your career.
All I've produced in my career. Well, I do have a website like everybody else. No, but I do have a blog and I post many things or the subjects of what I put up there are about health. And I think they're very helpful. And you can scroll through that. If you go up to the blog, you'll see recipes, you'll see wellness. I'm a foodie. I love food. And when I, am recommending or telling a person, male or female, that I really want them to cut out the carbs and this and that. I want them to still enjoy food. So I try to find recipes that they can utilize so they still feel like they can have some bread. Like I have a rosemary almond bread, which is just a bread. And it's easy to make. It's kind of a staple here. And it feels like I'm having it gives my bread. I found a new recipe for a grain-free non recipe, NAAN. So, with
I
Indian
saw
food.
that.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
so easy to make. So
Pictures are beautiful. Made my mouth water.
well, good. I'm glad they aren't my pictures. That I have to admit, I stole those pictures. They aren't mine, but I'm glad it made your mouth water. That was the whole idea. So I'm hoping people will take advantage of that. On, I believe, the first page, I should visit my website once in a while. The first page, you can click to download. I have Cindy D's paleo recipes. And I think there's about 16 of them. It's just a nice little start inside that book. And again, the pictures are very pretty. I had a friend help me do it
Uh,
together, and she's a graphic artist, and she's got a great eye. So that's fun. I do have a guide to essential blood work, lab work,
uh-huh.
and you can get that if you go onto my Instagram, onto my bio. My Instagram is Cindy_Dupuie, my last name. So CINDY_ and then DUPUIE. You can get it to it from that. I launched a course just recently and I'll be doing it again in January. I'm so excited about it because it feels like it's a culmination of 20 years in a
Sure.
sense. I've done other courses for other reasons, and it just felt like it was bringing it all together, and it's specifically for women of a certain age. So the perimenopause and menopause, and the course is called Grace in Transition. And it's just guiding women to our later years with grace, with joy, with energy and vitality. That's everything that's behind it. And the course description, it is on my website. And I know you know this, but I don't know if everyone knows this, is that to me, HRT is icing on the cake. It's the top.
Sure.
Okay. It's the
Yes.
sweet stuff that just dials it in. It does make it sweet, in my opinion. But we have to have a good foundation. So we have to have a good diet. We have to move. We have to sleep. We need to look at our digestive system. We need to look at our environmental exposures and toxins. We need to look at our adrenals. Thyroid, blood work. We need to support all of that. So that's what is done in that 8 weeks. So it's just kind of bringing it all together in a community. We meet once a week. So that's kind of the newest thing. And the next time that will happen is in January. So,
Wow.
yes,
That sounds phenomenal. And if someone wants to sign up for that, they go
they
to your website?
they'll go to my website, and I should go on my website. And do I have a waiting list? I think I will go right after this call to make sure that
Uh,
they can sign up for the waiting list that's coming up in January. And to be honest with you, I don't know how much I'm going to charge because this first one was a beta one. I charged just a minimal amount. And by the way, I offer a CGM as part of the course because I think that's important too, right?
and tell us what that is.
CGM is a continuous glucose monitor.
There.
I think everyone should wear one at least once. And I do think there's other factors. Knowing your fasting insulin is really important when you're
Uh-huh.
wearing a CGM too, for a lot of different reasons. But that is part of the program. And what I've done is, since it was a beta, is I charge a very nominal fee. And then at the end of the program, I am having my participants, my ladies, let me know what they felt like the course was worth. So these ladies are going to put the price on that course for the next. So
Okay.
yeah.
We've focused on females, but you also treat men and children, and you treat everybody.
I do treat everybody, not so much children. If someone was to come in and get a little bit, I used to do more with children. And I find to really be effective, I am better when I hone in a couple different groups and couple different areas. I'm
Okay.
just better. I can focus in on learning more, what the newest thing is, all of that.
Sure.
I
Okay.
do love working with my men. They're different than women. I know you know that. And I love educating them. I don't necessarily gotten into the hormone part with them yet, so I am a neophyte there. I feel like I know enough to at least have a conversation with them and at least tell them why I think hormone replacement might be good for them. Or if they're young, what we need to be working on, maybe not starting on hormone replacement. Same thing with my younger women. It's like, let's look at our adrenals. Let's support some different areas first, and thyroid, all of that, and see how far we get, and then go on to hormone replacement. And what can
Sure.
happen if you start it too early, at least in men.
Yes.
So I do love working with my men, and they often can be very, their brains just work differently than ours do.
And it's what I've noticed. It's hard to get a man to eat differently. Sometimes females will be a little more pliable that way. And
Yes.
meat and potatoes, at least in this part of the world where I live.
In California, it's a little bit easier
Is it?
because even just eating out, they're going to be exposed to more healthier eating. It's just going to be
Sure.
around them. Yeah, not to say that I still have to go in there, but usually it's easier for them to do that. It's
Sure.
not as foreign. So, and again, by the time they come to see me, usually they're pretty motivated.
Sure. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Cindy, you are a hormone hero, and you've shown
Oh.
us very ideally how gut health and healing the body with food controls so much of our bodies, including our hormones.
Listen to your gut. If you don't feel like you're getting the help that you need, there are a lot of good people out there who can help you, and don't give up.
That's
Yeah.
great. Great advice. And we will have everything Cindy's mentioned in our show notes. But Cindy, would you like to give our listeners your phone number as well as your website one more time?
Yes, my phone number is 949-370-9843. And I also would like to let them know that when they go on to my website, there is a very annoying pop-up. It looks like a chat box like you would, chat in. No, it is a pop-up where you can book a 20-minute call with me, an introductory call, just to find out if possibly, we're a match. I find out more about you. You find more about me and what I have to offer. So that's a
I
great
think,
place to start.
yeah, I saw that. I thought that was great. So just there's nothing to lose and you get to
No.
talk to Cindy. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. And we really appreciate your expertise.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And thank you so much for what you're doing. And I am planning on finding out more about what you do too. Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for what you do.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Hormone Heroes. Take a moment to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. While you are there, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and a review. If you would like to share your bioidentical hormone story or need help finding a physician in your area, please email us at drkelly@hormoneheroes.org. That's DRKELLY at HORMONE HEROES.org. We want you to be a hormone hero.